Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the monthly OpenStack TC video meeting. And this meeting is happening simultaneously on the OpenStack TC IRC channel on OFTC. So we'll be taking some notes over there. So I might be a little slow catching up, but feel free to also add your own notes to the IRC channel. Helps me write the summaries and keep track of action items and so on. So let's get started with uh, the meeting as usual with last week's AIs. I think the big ones were around the DCO. And at this point, I think most of you have already looked at the governance proposal. I was trying to find a way to time box that because, I mean, I think we're pretty short on our timeline, so we want to be aggressively pushing the aspect that folks have to start using the signed off by at least pay attention and like point out that there might be issues in the tooling or something like that that we've not covered yet.
Just a thing, like I've not followed all the comment discussion there, but is there any
Yeah.
objection or blocker from any community member or anyone? Or
I guess there is currently discussion around like translations and launchpad, I guess.
okay, but that's something like implementation things doesn't block our governance change, right? I'm saying like as soon as we can get a TC resolution in and all these things can be sorted out as a next step.
Yeah. And the rationale over there, I mean, partly because I didn't understand what is happening. I did ask Ian to respond on the review as well, and he points out that right now there was no way to enforce it, and it predates him as to how the translators had signed the ICLA and so on. So if you're a new contributor today, right, for example, to the translations, you can't even sign up on Zanata, and you can't sign up on Weblate either. So we're relying on a bunch of old translators who at some point would have signed the ICLA. Jeremy, go ahead.
Yeah, just to point out that once they do get moved over to Weblate, there are CLA and DCO options in Weblate's interface. So it's more of a temporary thing while they're still relying on Zanata.
Yeah, and I guess as a temporary solution, we can also pretty much prevent onboarding new translators to Zanatas and pretty much done with that, right? Because all existing translators should have signed off contributor license agreement.
But that was only enforced if the translation management team checked, and I don't know if they've done that. So
Yeah.
maybe.
Well, we can assume they were, but I mean, I guess the biggest point right now is not to create new CLA and avoid having it at all, right? So even when we technically don't have it, then probably we just shouldn't onboard more people to Zanata and focus on Weblate more or less.
Yeah, I think bootstrapping Weblate solves a lot of the problems around this in translations.
Do we have an ETA on that?
I have some updates, but not really a date that I could provide. So we have some new interns. That's the only good news around the translations framework. And they're going to be working with us for the next couple of months. And they are going to be figuring out some tooling. And the state of things, I could actually recap for folks that are not aware of what's happening right now. It's some of the PO files were imported manually onto Weblet, and just I mean they just got. I mean, the translation team, which is basically Ian and Shongshu, understood how the whole infrastructure works. But that's pretty much where things have ended. They attempted some of the migration of of the scripts that exist today themselves. So the way they do that is they scrape each repository. They create the I mean translation templates. They upload it on tarballs .openstack.org, I think, and then they push that into Zanata. They have that visible to translators, who then add their input, and then those things are generated again back onto the repository. They're pushed back through the tooling. So all of this tooling has to be migrated over from using Zanata to Weblet. And right now, nearly 0% of it is. There's some local patches that they have been experimenting with, and so that's the latest push. They're trying to actually harness some help through interns, through a structured program like an internship, and have an end date around how much of it can be automated. Um, and parallelly, I think the other challenge was this is a hosted Weblet instance, and it has limits. I mean, the limits that we set up with, we're nearly approaching them. So technically, we have to ask for an expansion of those limits, which means we might end up paying more, or we have to explore self-hosting Weblet itself by paying a minimal license fee as opposed to paying for hosting. So we still we're not anywhere in making that decision yet. Partially because I mean we don't know how much we need to bump the limits by. So just going up to the next year, we might just hit another limit, in another release or so. So that's where we are on the stuff. So it's a non-update. Things are happening. That's probably the update. And I don't know how to time box something, because it's being run by a very small team. So that's something that we probably need to, I mean, could help by drumming up some support for the translations team. Or maybe there are some strategies that we could evolve in this team.
But actually, can we help translations team? Because if we, for instance, ask projects who have translations to help move content, it will very quickly, very, very quickly will become a blocker. This limits, I mean.
Well, so
Yeah.
historically, a lot of what drove the translations were businesses that needed them or wanted them, right? So there's kind of like a give and a take there, where it's if this is something you need, you depend on, then investing in it is a reasonable thing to do, right? And that's how you deal with limits or self-hosting or whatever, right? Like there is work that needs to be done to make it happen. Can we combine that with the folks that need it? And if there isn't that demand anymore, then I mean that doesn't mean that there aren't any users that would rely on it. It's just, maybe the scale of the problem is not reasonable to and I know on the translation side that has been the primary issue in like the more recent history, is that there's just a lot to translate, and it's a very small group of people doing translations, and so they've tried to scope things to what they think they can manage. So,
Well, I mean, some of organizations I'm aware about, and I'm consulting for, do require translations. I know. I'm not sure if they can help with self-hosting or something like that, but they're contributing to translations, to translating content basically.
right. The translation itself is what they're working on.
Yes.
So this is all centered around the DCO change, right?
Sort of. So the other history here is that the tool that we have been using, Zanata, Red Hat decided to kill it. Just one day they said, nope, this project's dead. And we're still running it. It's not maintained. It's not, it's probably got bugs and security issues to be concerned about. It's often its own little corner enough that we've kind of just been limping along. And so the Weblate has long been the planned transition for that, right? So it's regardless of the DCO, we need to get off of Zanata. And Weblate was the decision made that that's the direction we were going in. It just so happens that Weblate also would address the DCO because there's built-in, like, I don't know if it's per translation you'd sign off on things, but you, as a translator, you can be forced to kind of say, I'm going to contribute these translations under these terms. And that might be the DCO or a CLA or whatever. You configure that.
Good job.
Yeah, I mean, the same thing. I'm not sure, like, this translation, Weblate things and all, it's a long-standing issue we have been discussing for many years, right? But I'm not sure why that is a blocker for DCO change. Because thing is, we are in the first week of June, and why we asked Foundation Executive and other secretary to extend the deadline, because main blocker was the company might need, more times to get this DCO approved. And it
Yes,
is
but
still extending our resolution, because without resolution, nobody can ask their company whether OpenStack is enforcing DCO. And resolution, I'm not seeing if any of the implementation change is a blocker for resolution.
but we somehow keep collecting technical debt in a way, because
That's what I'm
first of all,
saying. We should
translations were
separate
blocked
both,
with
right?
what? Sorry.
I'm saying, like, we should separate both these things, because resolution is not like it's saying like we will be implementing it July 1st. And if say by July 1st, there's tooling issue, there's implementation issue, or it's not feasible, obviously we can override resolution, but we cannot delay resolution thinking that things can be done or not done. Resolution is a very first step to start the things, not, to end the things.
Yeah,
Resolution can be override, can be changed.
but pretty much with such resolution, we are blocking onboarding of new translators to translation platform, right?
We're not.
So we have one blocker.
We're actually
Or we
not.
just we can make
The
an exception for translation.
Okay.
If the tool doesn't support it and we're not ready to move, make an exception.
And
Yeah.
you could potentially do
Update
something similar
manually.
to what's done today, where you document, you say, hey, you need to sign the CLA. Well, instead of signing the CLA, you say, send a note to the mailing list that says I'm a translation contributor and I'm doing my translations underneath the DCO, and they can paste the DCO in or something. Like just some acknowledgement that I'm doing the thing under the
Yeah.
terms that everyone wants them to be done under. I'm not a lawyer, but I feel like that kind of ticks a lot of boxes, especially for the DCO, which is basically my understanding of it is like I am asserting that I have permission to take whatever work I have done and give it to you, right? And so you make that assertion one way or another, and then you go do the work.
Yeah. And we do, these kind of things for many other boot changes coming up in repo. We do update the things. We do acknowledge a lot of other things. Somewhere CI is failing, conflict is happening. So that manual acknowledgement on mailing list or on the patch, it's still, serve the purpose. It's not a blocker that OpenStack cannot do a development or cannot do a release if that's not achieved.
Well, I mean, for non-English speaking communities and for, I don't know, where OpenStack is used as a platform for end users in public space, in public clouds, translations are quite important point to it. So, I mean, you can argue that if your users don't know English at all, that new release is not like happening for them, basically. Well,
Dimitri,
I mean,
sorry for
it
the
just
interrupt.
doesn't.
I had a interrupt over there. Like right now, you can't onboard new translators to Weblate. Period.
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
I know that recently a couple of folks were on board there, like I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago. So I mean,
But you can't self sign up, right? Is this something that you have to work with Ian or Songshu to get in?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
okay, okay. So yeah, so technically, it's not something where translators would show up to Sonata or opendev.org and start signing up for accounts or something like that. So
Yes.
if it is still a handoff process, we could
We can
actually coordinate
describe it,
something.
yes. Yes, yes. And I think Clark's idea makes total sense that we can indeed just say, okay, write to mailing list. I mean, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Probably we should just write it down in resolution or something, but I'm not sure.
I was proposing, can we handle the translations bit in a follow-up? We could
Yeah, yeah,
edit
we
the
can do
same
that.
thing, but I want to make sure that we land something for the code and documentation contributors, so we can actually start
Right.
enforcing the process informally before we actually enforce the process.
Sounds good as well.
Okay. Any objections there from anyone else? Okay, thank you. So if you've not looked at the patch or signed off on it, it has the minimum number of votes. I can go ahead and merge it. It has been in that state for a while. But if you would like to add any more comments, please do so. I'll actually merge this by the end of the day or in a few hours actually. So please go ahead and add any more comments. That was one of our uh, major AIs, and the other was um, around a DevStack plugin bug that was supposed to be reported for the Neutron DevStack issue. I'm not sure, so I can bring that up on the IRC channel and just check with Jay if that bug was opened. Okay, and that's pretty much it actually in terms of action items that I remember. Anybody else that was tracking anything else?
Are Jeremy might know, but are we already adding signed off buys for like the tools so that that's all done and ready to go when it starts enforcing it?
The changes are all proposed, and I'm still looking for people to review those. They can merge at any point ahead of time. The main objection that was raised was Thierry was concerned that automated systems applying signed off by in a commit message might have legal implications. But I mean, again, I'm not a lawyer. He's going to check with Foundation Counsel. My understanding is that the signed off by lines and commit messages are simply an assertion that without context means nothing, but the project gets to define and declare that if a person adds signed off by to their commit message, then that means that they are agreeing to provide this contribution under the DCO. But if an automated system puts a signed off by line in a commit message, that doesn't necessarily convey any meaning. So I don't think that we have to really worry about that. It's more just an implementation detail to be able to get these automated changes to be accepted by Garrett when we've got the signed off by enforcement turned on in a project.
Right.
So again, I don't think there's any blocker. I think we should be able to go ahead and approve them. But Thierry's interested in checking with legal just to be sure.
I'm not sure that you can hear me correctly because I'm using like another mic from
We
my
can hear you.
webcam one. Okay, cool. Yeah, so basically when we discussed that on the patch, we had a few concerns. My own is about the gate UI. Basically, when it's not on July, but when we'll be asking for the specific sign of buy, then at least we need to make sure that people could be adding it. That's my main concern because then people need to provide this correctly.
I'm not sure I understood. So you're concerned about the enforcement date or when we should be enforcing it?
No, basically, when you use directly, basically when you provide a new patch directly, it's simple. You can just say minus s, and then basically sign us by will be provided. Okay, but when you use uh, directly the UI, the gate UI, then you can just say minus s, right? You need to, for example, um, when you created, a specific patch, not using sign of by, and then when, for example, you need to backport when you need to, for example, to backport some specific patch after that, then basically it could be a problem because when you basically use the Gate web UI for that, it won't be adding the sign out of by directly. So that's my main concern because people that, for example, that will want to use the web UI could be not able to do that. That's my main concern because if you directly do that by not by Gate but by minus s, it's simpler, right?
Yeah. Jeremy?
It's only going to be a problem temporarily if people are trying to use the backport button or the rebase button on changes that were submitted to Garrett before we put the enforcement into place. So over time, there should hopefully be fewer and fewer of those in the system. But you're right, we need to make sure that whatever contributor documentation gets updated about this also mentions that using the backport and rebase buttons in Garrett could require you to manually add a signed off by line or to use the CLI to do your rebases and your backports in the interim if you're dealing with a change that was provided before we were requiring signed off by lines.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. It should be just a problem like for a few weeks, or maybe a bit more than that. But I just want to make sure that we document that correctly, even for Git minus s. I mean, my main concern, I don't know what it means for enforcing DCO, but as far as I understand, for example, if you don't do minus s directly by Git, then basically you will have a specific uh, then Git should be saying sorry, but it won't be explaining you why. So that's why if it's not simple to explain why you need to provide the DCO, why you're not able to provide a specific sign-off by, then we need to make sure that the documentation is correct. Because I would rather prefer that, for example, but as far as I remember, it's not possible. If I'm just going git minus, if I'm just going git without -s, I would rather prefer that the exception that we'll get would be saying, oh, basically you don't provide like sign off. But let's not discuss about that right now.
It already does.
Yeah, the error message says the sign off by is missing by author, committer, self, or something. Like it does tell you why it rejected it. It is still terse, like it's not a very verbose message, but it does tell you. And then the other
Okay.
thought I had was to reduce the size of that window where you can't, hit the rebase button as easily. One option there is to just encourage people to start signing off by things as soon as possible. And then you've got more changes in Garrett ahead of time that already meet those requirements that Garrett's going to try and enforce for when you then are post enforcement. And so hopefully that even reduces further the amount of time it's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with you, but I'm more thinking about people like some people are not really knowing about that by now, and like after like a few times, then they will provide a new patch, and they won't be exactly understanding why it was not accepted. But okay, I'm more thinking about not us, but like people providing maybe patches by one patch per year, let's say. But
Yeah, like many things, I think in OpenStack, this will become one of those things that a project maintainer will end up, talking to the contributor on IRC or email or something and resolving this, right? Because previously, I mean, you had to have that issue with, oh, I can't sign up
yeah,
on Gerrit. I don't know how to format my patch. I don't know how to write a proper commit message, etc. There are like lots of other things. So this is one more of those where they'll be frustrated that they can't submit a change because Gerrit's giving them a new error message that they're not aware of. But they can talk to a human who's a project maintainer and get that
yeah.
resolved. It's a good thing the resolution is so simple. But not everything, though. I think there was still one issue that we left off, which was the web UI updates. The sign-offs are a little wonky, and I think, I mean, I still don't know if I can articulate it very well. Clark and Fungi and folks were talking about it on the IRC channel. But I think we should address that as a separate concern and a follow-up, if anything, if we can address it at all. A lot will depend on human enforcement as well. So reviewers should pay attention that, these signed off lines are not being like, manipulated by somebody else that's updating a patch, for instance, and removing somebody else's sign off and so on. Because that's something that Gerrit won't enforce, we've seen. Okay. If there's anything else about the topic. All right, let's move on to the next topic on the agenda. If my thing can load. Okay, it was actually the same, a continuation of the same topic, just a different aspect of things. I think I'm not seeing a whole lot of reviews on these patches that are open on the governance repo. Some of those are taking a long time for review. Just wanted to bring it up and say, please take a look. especially if you see that, I mean, you've been added, and if you're, I don't know if your email filters and such are probably preventing you from getting notified about being added to the review. But if you've not looked at one of these changes that's open, please do, and let's get this merged because it's been a few weeks since they have been on Gerrit. Any concerns with anything that's open that needs to be talked about right now?
Gutam, just one question, given we discussed a lot about the DCO patch. Can you maybe provide a summary in some specific comment to say exactly where we are? Maybe I could just remove my -1 just because I think it's important to add the DCO resolution now.
Yeah.
But I'm because a lot of people discussed and now because from what I know, at least we will be providing like the main documentation correctly quickly, so
Yeah.
I can just remove my -1. But I just want to make sure that we have a summary somewhere, so that I'm pretty sure that no other concerns is there then.
Okay.
For,
I'll do
for,
so.
for, for, for what it's worth, I will just remove my -1 for core view, just with +0, and then after the summary, then I could have a specific roll call vote.
Okay.
Thanks.
Makes sense. Will do. Thank you. Anything on anything else? I think Doug was asking for a project team guide update. Thanks for posting that. I think we have two reviews over there. We should be able to merge it, Doug.
Yeah, I can workflow it if everybody's okay with that.
Yeah, I think on those repos, we're just enforcing two cores. Thank you. Awesome. Let's go back. I think we had one other informational topic, which was the user survey questions. I think I didn't get any more feedback on this, and so we decided against changing any of these open questions at the moment. That's what I wanted to mention here today. I'd already mentioned the same thing on this on the summary that I sent out to the mailing list, just so we avoid confusions and we are consistent in our summarization. We can take a different tack as soon as this survey is closed. And of course, if you have questions that you can think of for the next user survey, we can be prepared in advance. All right, and the next one, probably the meat of the discussion today, is going to revert back to the old contributor experience discussion. Wanted to throw in today's subtopic, which was the summary of the contributor and maintainer surveys that was shared to the OpenStack Discuss email list. And I've also put that on the TC tracker. I've just copy pasted the summary practically so that we can, if we want to talk through it. It's on the TC tracker. It's not surprising. I mean, it probably is stuff that we know about, but there's also the aspect that, I mean, these are people that we probably are not talking to every day. So that's I mean, it's probably a validation of things that we already know about. Um, Anybody wants to take a hazard and pick on something and start talking about it? Any particular item that you would?
I may have one about the trouble getting review attention.
Yeah.
I mean, that's by and far the largest percentage, right? Everything else is.
Yeah. So I, I think it's a communication problem. Because what we tried to do on the previous cycles was about how to tell on-off contributors how to provide their patches. The main communication issue that we have is that I think that contributors think that once they are uploading a patch, we'll be able to see it. And I think they think about that because indeed, for example, by IRC, you will see any patch. With Gerrit, you can look at the list of patches. So, I mean, someone wanting to provide a patch would be thinking how simple this is to find their own patches. And yes, indeed, this is simple with Gerrit to find a patch. But the problem is not about finding a patch, and that's a communication problem. This is about the fact that we have a long list of patches without priorities because we don't have a product manager. So basically, every single patch is a priority for each of us. And every project tries to organize their priorities differently. And some of them try to find a way to tell contributors how to provide their patches, not by Gerrit, but by some other way, Launchpad, Etherpad, or something else, so that then either the PTL or the core maintainers could be able to prioritize it. But yeah, so I'm not saying here that we are done. I'm not saying that this is so simple that anyone wanting to contribute should be doing this and that. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm thinking that there is a communication problem that I don't know how to fix. Because again, as a previous PTL, I was trying every single summit to discuss with those contributors and tell them how to basically provide their patches so that we could prioritize them. And every time that I was discussing with them, I was actually helping them because they were not exactly knowing exactly how to do that by Nova. So yeah, that's why I'm wanting to discuss about that because that's like a long time that I'm wanting to fix that in my previous project. I mean, in the project that I mostly worked with, um, I I mean, I'm definitely happy with discussing with, um, let's say, on-off contributors. I wouldn't say operators, but we know that in general, on-off contributors are operators that are impacted by bugs and want us to fix their bugs. And again, I think for them, the bugs that they found are very much important for them, more important than the features that the core maintainers work with. Yes, indeed, I'm not disagreeing with that. I mean, that's impacting them. But yeah, so that's a communication problem. And the few times that, for example, at summits or at virtual PTGs, I'm talking about something like a virtual PTG, we had operator hours, both physically and virtually, where we could be talking about basically how to organize our priorities, but unfortunately, we didn't have quorum. I mean, we had a few people joining, but not that much. So, hear me clear, and then I will finish. I really want to find a solution, but I don't exactly know how to communicate more than that. And by communicating, that's the first action item. Maybe then the service projects or the projects could organize themselves differently once we have a discussion. But the first action item to me is communicating with them, with the on-off contributors, and tell them, do we have, I mean, is it a problem because you are not knowing what to do? Or is it a problem because what we provided is not sufficient to you?
Thanks. Amy? Amy, were you saying something? Your mic's still muted.
Just talking to myself. All right, so the ops hours during the PTG were actually my idea. I don't feel like we communicated them out soon enough to the operators, nor was everyone clear on what they were supposed to be. And I think not reaching out to everyone weeks in advance versus the week of or the week before was early enough for people to put it on their schedule to attend, to have a clear idea of what we wanted to get out of those. But when we had the ops meetup in person in Berlin, I think we got a lot of useful communication out. Again, may not have been communicated out quick enough for everyone to add that day to their travel plans. But we did have good attendance from the ops side, and we did have some developers there, as well as some of the foundation. So I think to some degree, we didn't organize them well enough. We didn't communicate them well enough. I think they hold a lot of value. So I put this in the channel, but let's try to make sure that we take advantage of the summit and try to plan for the project updates and having some interaction as well as forum sessions. I've asked Helena and Allison to get forums and project updates available in the CFP as soon as we can. I haven't heard back yet. I will follow up with them again today. But when you're in person, you do get more out of the interactions. So let's see what we can do for Summit and for the future, because I think when you get people in the room, people talk. We had some really good meetings around Red Hat Summit. Not, I know there were real good talks on the OpenStack side, but the meetings I had were all on the Linux side, and we got a lot accomplished. So let's see if we can't do that in Paris as well. I'm gonna delete whatever thing that you have been talking about.
Dimitri?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I mean, it's really sometimes problematic to understand each individual team rules because each project has its own way of setting up priorities, which is like very non-conformant. And from sometimes projects are not active enough, so it might be quite very tricky to find out, reach out to PTL or something. They don't hold the meetings or something like that. So even I find challenging sometimes to understand how I need to whom I need to whom and how I need to push to get some attention to patches. Um, so and the only solution I see is somehow provide a tooling or I don't know some guidelines to projects or to projects and actually to users on like best practices of how these reviews projects should be handled. But I think we already have contributed guidelines for that. But again, I mean, sometimes some teams require you to join to the meeting, some to fill up some other part which are really not searchable actually. Unless they're linked somewhere on wiki and wiki page, I mean, you need to search for it somehow. Some are using review priority label, but then it appears that review priority label is just there, but it's not being used. So I don't know. And even if you do all that, it's not guaranteed that review won't take like another half a year or something. So it would be really great from contributor perspective if projects would be more aligned in their practices on at least how you should let know about having issue with your patch or like asking for help or something.
Yeah, an asking for help section. That might be a good thing for the project documentation. But I'll just note a couple of things that you said. Sylvain, go ahead.
No, sorry. I think, okay. So for example, for Nova, you have a contributors file in the Git repo that exactly tells you what to do. When you first look at the Git repo, you will find the contributors file. Dmitry, what you said, I think what we could be asking is, but I'm not really sure it should be a goal or something like that, but just maybe asking at least the projects to make sure that we have some document, and I think the simplest is again about the Git repo to have a specific file in the Git repo which is contributing. That way, that's the first way that someone is like not exactly knowing exactly where to look because we had wiki, we had project specific documentation. Then they will see where to look first. I think that's as simple ask that we could be asking the projects just to make sure that at least they create or they update their specific contributors file. Maybe just adding within that file a link to the project specific documentation. Maybe that's just simple that, but then we could be adding in the contributors guide that if you want to look at how the project organize themselves in order to contribute, then look first at that specific file. That just a technical solution, we could be finding other ways. What I'm just saying is actually two things. First, contributing to OpenStack is trusted or dislike it if you want. That's a human. That's just human to human discussion. For example, when Amy says that when we discuss physically, this is definitely better, that's just because the OpenStack community is just human. We have AI, but we are just humans. And when Dmitry says, for some projects that I won't name, that sometimes you even don't know who to ping, um, that's because you basically need to find the right human in order to basically discuss with them how to prioritize your patch. Um, about that one, about the fact that we are humans, I think we miss something crucial. We have PTLs. We have every single project. Oh, sorry. I said every single, not every single project, but even DPL, even DPL projects, if not a PTL, should be having a specific associate or a name, if you prefer, that we could defer to. Um, that's why, I mean, I think it's important to also say to our contributors, don't be afraid, please, to ping the PTLs of the project that you want to contribute to, because then, not saying he or she will be onboarding you, but at least he should be discussing with you. Again, just from the few years before, I'm just counting a few times when I was pinged by some person wanting me to wanting to have that. But if every time I was pinged, I could be telling him or her, I could be telling them, look, probably you should be this. I mean, I was trying to organize basically that patch because that person actually pinged me, and that was giving me. I don't know. Again, I'm human. That was giving me um, a, a way to say, oh, yeah. I mean, I told him that I would be looking at this patch. I don't want to lie because I'm human. So voila, that's the few things that I just wanted to reply based on Amy and Dmitry. The fact that maybe we could be finding a simple technical solution that could just adding something, but we even if we find a simple solution that could be asking the projects, we need to remember ourselves that we are humans and we maybe need to communicate more to our contributor base that then they actually need to basically engage with humans.
Thank you, Doug.
So I don't want to pick on, but I do want to give like a specific example. And since we were talking about Nova, I'm going to use Nova as an example here on this. So something that is actually cross operator feature, right? My organization and then a couple of other organizations have been looking for a change that touches Neutron and Nova. We've been stuck without feedback, and I think it's a great example because all the authors of these changes are actually um, OpenStack maintainers on other projects and other things, right? So we're not complete outsiders, not complete nobodies. So we're stuck on Nova right now. So there's a Nova spec that's got one person that's given it a +1, Sean Vinny, and that's it, right? The auto abandon thing that Neutron has going on a bunch of places, abandoned the tests and changes on the Neutron side. We've asked for those to be reopened, but the answer from the Neutron folks has been, well, you need Nova to respond first, so we're not going to unabandon your changes. And so it's we've pinged about it at Nova meetings. It's been a couple of weeks because I've been on PTO, but like that's a prime example of getting feedback. I don't know how to get feedback, right? So I mean, I don't know. There's a comment of, well, we us maintainers don't know what to do. I mean, it's been brought up, and if there are changes that want to be made, I feel like one of the things that we should do is not plus one something and then just ignore it, or not. We have to minus one it and give that person feedback, right? So if there is changes that people want to see happen, minus one it. Tell us what needs to happen. But yeah, I feel like that is probably what a bunch of users feel is you might get a plus one from somebody, you might get nothing. You just get nothing. Um, so that's
Yeah,
I don't know how to address that, right? So
yeah. Just to, I mean, I understand your concern, and your concern is definitely valid. What I'm just saying is that cross-project efforts are probably the most difficult things to discuss.
absolutely.
Uh, so basically, yeah. What I was, for example, telling was about like more like bug fixes and simple feature asks that people have. The cross-project efforts that you're mentioning, maybe I'm wrong, but I think maybe we discussed that at the PETG. That's also some other action item that we have on our side about interacting more with different projects. And I think at the previous PTG, for example, one of the issues that we found is that we missed some specific cross-project meetings because it was difficult for us, like for example, with Eventlet or other or Unified Limits or other cross-project efforts. We thought that we missed a time at the PTG to organize ourselves. Uh, Voilà. So in I'm not saying that will be the solution in your situation. And again, don't hesitate. You are the people that actively worked with the Nova patches to raise your concern at the Nova meeting or directly to the PTL. I'm no longer the PTL, and because I unfortunately have less time to work on Nova at now, but again, don't hesitate to raise your concerns and see and just explain that you're blocked because other projects are waiting for Nova to reply. I mean, again, we are human and we could be
No, no,
faulty. And
I, I,
in that
I was just trying to give
situation,
an example,
yeah,
and like I said, I'm not trying to really pick on and
no,
make
no, no,
you.
no,
I don't
sure,
want to
sure,
make you
sure, sure.
defensive.
I get that. I get that, but I think honestly, probably in that specific situation, I think what we really miss, and that I hope that we'll have at the next PTG, we'll be having maybe 1 day or 2 days for cross-project discussions, like people wanting to have a specific support related or specific effort for multiple teams could be having a time to discuss that because that way it would be better to discuss. I'm not saying that will fix the problems that we have now, but at least that will help. Voilà. And then indeed, every single project during the cycle need to remember themselves that they discussed that at the PTG, and they said, yes, indeed, we will look at the action items for us, and then we'll review them. And again, we could be faulty, but I just wanted to answer your concern. Please discuss with Ronnie. Please discuss with. I said that to you because you raised the problem, but please raise that to Ugla. please go to the Nova meeting, and then we'll find and then we'll try to find a way to help you guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Apologies, but I think we got to end it here. So it's 4 minutes past, and we can still chat on the OpenStack TC channel, but I'd like to finish up this meeting. So thank you all for participating. The next week's meeting is going to be on IRC, and it's actually going to be hosted by Dimitri. So thanks for running that meeting, Dimitri, and we'll set up the agenda and share stuff on the summary email as usual. Thank you.
Thank you.